Cool. So we are on our last episode of the year. It's episode 19, I think. I kind of feel bad we didn't get to 19. Well, 20, I mean. Would have been a
Yeah,
nice
like an
round
even.
number. Wrap up 2020 on a 20th episode, but that's not happening, and that's okay because this whole year has been a disappointment.
We could have planned that out a little better and maybe had one more interview before the break, but we're both ramping down off of work, going into the holidays, and I think that we both kind of wanted to have a bit of a reprieve.
Right.
In the last couple of months here have been kind of personally for me, I feel like it's been the anxiety the rest of the year is kind of caught up here in the last month. And knowing that I was going to have the holidays, I was excited, honestly.
Right.
So I was looking forward to having some break because I haven't really had like a true break this whole year.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's for a lot of people. I feel like everyone is just looking forward to the holidays where we can just wind down for a little bit and reset for 2021. I'm optimistic about 2021. I'll tell you this. I am much, much more optimistic than 2020.
I think I've seen people talking about like that's why they called it the Roaring '20s, right? Like, they got through the Great Depression and then it was like a boom after that. But it's kind of
Right.
It's going to be really interesting in the tech world because I think what you saw happen over the last several months is, we talked about this when COVID was really in full swing. I mean, it's still in full swing. I'm not going to downplay it there, but companies moving into this world where they have to accept remote work or they've been forced into it. Their hand has been forced. And so now we're at the point, we're almost in the new year and a lot of these companies have now they've completed their transition and they figured out how to start doing it properly. In some ways, like Microsoft taking great steps to make sure that like our employees are getting what they need to get work done, shipping things out of the main offices. And I think you're seeing that across the board at any size business. Several of our guests on the show have talked about that, so yeah, I'm optimistic for the future of just remote work in general after this. It forced a lot of people's hands, but that might have been a good thing.
It was an interesting conversation that I had with a couple of people back in, I want to say like February, March-ish, where I was talking about how their teams are operating and the remote aspect of things was pretty much a non-starter. Teams were saying that it's not something they will ever do. You need to be in the hallway. You need to be present right then and there. And just a couple of months later, COVID happened. And you're right. It kind of forced everyone's hand. And it showed that you can do remote work when you absolutely need to. And people are an adaptable species. And we can actually push our limits pretty hard when we need to.
And I think I have several questions about where this is going to go, post pandemic. Remote work has been more normalized. Everybody's talking about it now. It seems like even people that are in traditional tech jobs, even some call center jobs, like there's just been so many jobs that have been forced into this mode. Like, will we go into the office again? If so, how often, right? I know that I personally liked to travel occasionally. I'd liked to get out to Redmond and see my peers. And that was like, once every 2 or 3 months. But, another question is like, is this hybrid way of working going to totally break the way that we communicate, connect? Maybe it even changes the amount of hours you work in a week. I've seen people talking about that, right? Like Fridays, it's like 4 days on, 3 days off. What if that becomes a norm?
Right.
The butts in seat for 8 hours a day is no longer kind of the gold standard. There's no reason to set it that way, right? Like you could split up your day however you want now.
It's interesting too, because from the perspective that you're describing, there's a lot of nuance in that, again, kind of thinking of how we are as a species, we're very social. We need the human interaction. We need the human contact. So just because we're working remotely right now, I don't think it'll be possible where everyone is 100% completely remote, working from home, because there's a lot of constraints on that environment, right? Not everyone has a big house. Not everyone has. Right.
What does that mean if our offices are completely virtual now and we lose those day-to-day social interactions? We're only, we're only like, 8 months into it. So we don't know what the long trail effects of this could be.
Exactly.
for those workplaces. And the other thing that's been brought up has been maybe this is a great leveler for gender equality and diversity in the workplace. So uh, there's an affordance there for that to become like a leveling factor.
I think it definitely opens doors because you're no longer constrained by, say, location. If I want to work from Raleigh, North Carolina, or from Wichita, Kansas, or from Seattle, Washington, I can do the exact same job from anywhere. It doesn't matter, right? I don't need to move my family. I don't need to sell my house. So that definitely opens doors for a lot of possibilities that I think we have not seen before. But the same, I'll tell you this. I have been working remote not that long, maybe for what, like 3 years, going on 4 years now. And I still feel like it's super helpful sometimes to just go into the office and riff on a project on a whiteboard. Like, I don't think that a Teams call or a Skype call can fully replace that interaction model. I don't know. There's just something about being there in person and being able to collaborate with people, being able to bounce ideas that's not impossible when you're remote. And we've seen a lot of companies that do that. We've seen companies like Basecamp, right? I'm a big fan of what DHH and Jason Fried are doing with Basecamp and Hey, and they're entirely remote. But at the same time, I feel like to kind of break out of the bubble, we need to interact with people and just be in the room together and build things. I don't know. I think it's going to be maybe a hybrid approach here, where it's not fully remote, it's not fully on site, but it's a little bit of both.
And it's a once in a generation kind of opportunity to reimagine the way that we do our jobs, the way the companies are ran, the way the offices are ran. Being for a long time I was at a company that was fully remote, Stack Overflow. They had a central office. It was great to go there occasionally, and there were definitely people that preferred to be there, and that was an option. You could be relocated there to New York City, and you could work in an office. We would get you an office, but the majority of people chose to be at home. And the same thing at Microsoft. I mean, you see these massive campuses that have food service workers and cleaners, and there's a lot of infrastructure built up there to support other people's jobs too, though. Having those offices in person, and like how much of that shift is going to disrupt those types of jobs.
I think this is an important point because it's often omitted when we discuss kind of remote work that for knowledge workers, for IT workers, it's very easy to make that shift, right? Like, you take your laptop, go home, that's your office. It doesn't matter if you have kids at home, you have pets, you have all the worries, you can still work from home technically. Mm-hmm. But if you're a restaurant worker, if you are a doctor, if you are someone that does, plumbing, you can shift those jobs to your house. You can't just, do plumbing from home, because you still need to go to people's houses and do that work. It's when we talk about remote work, we can't be too reductionist about it and saying that, well, everyone will shift to remote, because the reality is, no, it won't. Knowledge workers, maybe, in a good chunk of those, but there's going to be a lot of other segments of the economy that will just not transition to the mode of operation anytime soon.
And I want to back up a little bit here too, because I want to also touch on something that's close to me, because I've seen it happen in my own home with my wife, which is that topic of like gender equality. And I mentioned this not because, I think that there's definitely like women being clustered in like lower paying jobs on the whole. And when the pandemic hit, it even increased women's, my own wife, she does a lot of unpaid work at home. So, cooking, cleaning, childcare. She also has a job that she works, and it's a flexible job right now. It's in person. She is not remote. But that emphasis, that like demand, has gotten even more intense since I've gone remote and my children have been home. And so you're starting to see this like I said, it's even more intense and demanding on families, and especially like women in the household. And will remote opportunities kind of open the door for them to, one, get like higher paying jobs, two, more flexibility in their day. So, if they are going to continue doing that, like, helping out with that, or, doing a lot of the work at home, that type of unpaid work, is there an opportunity there, I guess, to kind of relook and rebalance like the gender conversation. And like when a workplace, they could make some affordances to support that. They could say, look, we understand you have small kids, like you're not going to be available from certain times of the day. That stuff's really important. Like family flexibility. Not everybody is single. Some people have families and they also want to have a good career. They want to chase their dreams in that way too. And yeah, I just think that remote opens the door for that opportunity. And if companies really think about it in a way that's like innovative, as I mentioned, like adjusted work hours or, setting expectations properly with managers, it's a great kind of door or opportunity for us to look at.
Right. And this is, I think, where when we also talk about remote work, it's worth looking at this as a system of things. You have a set of incentives, you have a set of feedback loops that exist that we cannot ignore. So it's not just about take your laptop home and work from home, but it's more of what does that mean for daycare or for, childcare? What does it mean for education? What does it mean for career growth? Because you're right. If you're, a family, you have a different set of responsibilities from somebody that lives by themselves in a studio apartment that has a lot of flexibility, if you will, in their day. And I get it. It's not everyone, and I'm just broadly generalizing this, but the set of responsibilities, the set of worries is very, very different that I don't think we fully know the implications yet. And that's why.
Well, and there are wonderfully talented women that are mothers that are doing things that would make it a real challenge to work in a corporate work environment. Like, like we've mentioned, talking about driving into Redmond, you got to drive there in the morning. You can't be there to get your kids ready. You got to pick them up at a certain time during the day. Well, you can't get out of Redmond because of traffic. All of that stuff goes away with remote. And so there's an awesome opportunity there for them to kind of get these jobs that otherwise they wouldn't have even been able to think about because they have those commitments, and dads help too. That's the other thing. It goes both ways. It's not just mothers, but it's also fathers
right
that help with the kids too. So,
well, and the aspect of this is the trope of, well, if you're remote, you can just move to Montana, live on a ranch somewhere, and just have a perfect career. Well, if you're by yourself, yes, that makes sense. You can do that. If you are a family with kids, you can't just move to Montana and be on a ranch in the mountains somewhere because, well, who's gonna worry about daycare? What about education, right? Like the responsibility falls on someone. And it's not as simple of an equation to solve and just saying that, well, just move everyone remote, work from home. That's it. Boom. Problem solved. We have a winner. Yes and no. There's just so much variability in it. And I think to the extent that you're describing kind of the situation where the flexibility still needs to exist because different people will have different life situations. So the flexibility and the tools need to exist and be put in place to account for that, right? So I keep hammering home the point about daycare because I've just been recently talking to a friend about that. And it was just baffling to me, like the cost of daycare and the cost of doing that at home. It was a shock when I learned about it. And I don't have kids, but to me, even learning about it, it's like, wow, if you do not have a system in place that provides that safety net of taking care of this aspect of someone's life, it will add so much strain on everything you do. Your career, your relationships with other people. It's just, we can't take a look at this problem in isolation.
Yeah, and I think one of the great challenges is like what happens to all those workers that can't work from home? Because there's going to be, still over half of the workforce is not going to be able to work from home of Americans. And, that's going to increase. The remote shift is also going to, see a decline in like daily commuters, business travel. All of that has like a knock-on effect to the people that those jobs support. Those jobs are supported by some of this. And we need to shore up that like social safety net in some way. Like, can we invest in ways to increase the skills or increase the education for those people? And making access to childcare, that's even another critical part. It's like some areas just don't have it. Safe, reliable childcare, and that's like part of that social safety net. Because To be honest, it's really hard to run, a child daycare and do it right. You don't want to have too many children either. So
Right.
yeah,
And
I just think that is one of the largest. The unpaid work that women do is one of like the biggest barriers for like women reaching their potential in the workforce, and remote work can work in their favor in that way, if done right.
right.
If companies really take it seriously.
Right. And I like your idea that you called out earlier about the flexible hours. I think we'll soon see that this 9 to 5 day, at least again for knowledge workers, I'm purely using it to just our field, is going to be a thing of the past. Because you'll end
Yeah,
up, and it's a good thing because at the end of the day, what matters is measure of impact. Have you done the work that matters and kind of produces the right results? Whether I did it in 8 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours, doesn't matter. Whether I did it from 6 a.m. until noon and then took a break and did more work between
yeah.
like 8 and 10, like it doesn't matter.
And we've had guests on our show even talk about this cycle of work where, there's periods where it's going to be very heavy, concentrated amounts of effort. And then other times where it's going to be a lull. Like, there's going to be sprint segments, and then there's going to be maybe, slower marathon segments where you can catch your breath a little bit. It's not just like a 40-hour work week all the time. I really don't think it needs to be looked at as that. I think it needs to be looked at more like, what's the lump of time that we have to get things done in this month, right? Or this period, and make it happen. Whether you have to backload it, front load it, or it's a peaks and valleys, right? I always look at it like kind of like time commitment for this effort. It's like a treadmill, right? You like have these little peaks and valleys, and you're gonna increase the difficulty and decrease at certain points. You get your breath back. So yeah, I just think that we can innovate a little bit on that idea of hours spent working, and it's more about
right.
impact made while working, or what are our goals and what can we get done realistically, and also not completely stress out our workforce. Because I'll tell you what, being remote myself for a long time, if I didn't have the flexible hours, that would be, I couldn't do it. I really could not have the lifestyle I have, and I would not be happy. So
Right. And I mean, if I refer to our friends at Basecamp because they really, really have done an excellent job with kind of formalizing the culture of remote, but what they found and what they kind of been very actively talking about is the fact that in a workday, our 8 hour workday, only about 4 hours are really focused hard work when you can just kind of put all your energy in it, because after that, your energy levels just kind of drain and your work is just not going to be as effective, right? So like for those 4 hours, you need to hammer home what you need to get done. And after that, you're just kind of like, all right, I'm going to catch up on the low effort task, if you will. And I know, again, it's overly generalizing as low effort because there's a lot of high effort tasks and decisions that need to be made, but still, you have that very short 4 hour time window in which you can get things done. And beyond that, it makes no sense to kind of have this hard enforcement of 8 hours. Exactly. This is it. This is when you work, because you can work whenever. And if it helps you to recharge a little bit and, I don't know, take a nap and then get back to work and be much more productive and insightful, do that. Who cares? Right?
I I think looking at what has happened specifically in tech companies, again, we are in a little bit of a focus bubble here, right? And like, we're looking a lot at tech companies. We're hearing the stories of our peers that working at different places, and there's a couple lessons learned for like companies that are adapting to remote work. One of those is right, like right at the top, it's that flexibility with the work hours. How longer have like the long commute times. So that's huge, right? And then they're also adopting like virtual first. So the workplace has to become a spot that is looking at work as virtual first or remote first, versus, hey, by the way, we had this meeting in the office and you weren't included, right? So like COVID forced us to think remote and virtual first versus the other way around, which, coming into Microsoft, again, as a former completely remote employee at an organization that done it really well, that was eye-opening to me, that it was still very much a office and like meeting oriented culture. And if you weren't in those meetings, you're not going to hear about anything. So that was like number one is like, all these companies are shifting to remote and virtual first, and then they're setting up their teams for success. So like, whatever the team's preferences are, giving you what you need to get your job done. Number two, there would be, the managers need to know how to like actually coach and collaborate and evaluate performance and motivate people remotely. This is a unique skill that in office interactions no longer happen face to face. You don't go out to lunch with people. These meetings that are can sometimes be rather emotional about performance or work. Those don't have the same presence about them, right, as when they're done in person. So there's a little bit more nuance there, and understanding that and talking about it as a team is really important. It's not just a one-to-one, hey, you managed in an office and now you just do it here. And then the third one's just like enabling the multiple modes of working. So we've talked a lot about async work. When we kicked off our podcast, we talked a lot about how writing is so critical, and like data being saved on the cloud and have everybody having access to it. That tailors and allows for different working modes, different time zones. I think that's like absolutely critical, obviously, for like seamless virtual collaboration. If you don't have like things wrote down, shared out among your work group, and it's like in a central location, it's going to be a really hard pressed to get anything done.
Right. There's a lot of the culture shift that needs to happen, because there's a lot of this where you can clearly see that an organization is not yet ready to be remote, because you see the proliferation of meetings into the remote world, because you had those meetings in person, you had a lot of them, and now everything is a video call. Instead, a lot of people need to realize the fact that it's not about meetings, it's about communication. Communication can be done asynchronously. When you have a document, you write things down. And because a lot of people are shifting to this flexible work mode where you might have different hours than you had before, and that's okay. This means that maybe you don't have time for a meeting, but you will have enough time to give feedback on a document later on. So things are better put in a document or in a chat where you can respond asynchronously and not necessarily in the moment when things happen. And that shift has been happening, and I've seen this, and I definitely see this happening in different companies. So it's not isolated to a specific, just kind of a segment of our industry, if you will. But it needs to happen where people realize that communication can be done in more than just the ways that we've previously been doing, and taking those ways. And, it's not about taking those ways and moving them to the virtual world. It's about changing the entire paradigm of saying we do things differently because we're remote. We're cognizant of all the constraints that people have. We're cognizant of the flexible work hours. We realize that people can still deliver value when they're not kind of like, as you use the expression, of butts and seats from 9 to 5. It's more of like, how do you enable the work environment where people can get work done no matter what, no matter whether they are available at this given hour or not. Just trust them that they will get things done. But how do you enable them to do that? It's a shift. And I think it's going to, we learned a lot this year. And for a lot of people, it was a forcing function where they didn't think they would learn, but they did.
But you're going to start to see the follow along effects of companies that have actually, like, there's going to be a real true material effect to the shift, whether you prepared and like actually shifted rapidly, or if you're still struggling with it as a company in this new mode of working. And that's going to show up in the way that companies are retaining talent, the way they're losing talent, the way that, even their products are being iterated on. And I think that like a company like GitHub, right? We look at GitHub from the developer perspective and, developer relations perspective. They've been doing great things. I mean, they've shifted their whole like conference and like developer audience to this like virtual interactions. And they're really able to like kind of drive innovation on their platform without having, everybody in their offices. And so I think they're like a great example of a company that before, they were pretty distributed anyways, but then they just went full swing, full tilt into this world. Microsoft, I feel like, is doing a pretty good job for as massive as an organization it is. So like I said, I think we're going to see some follow along effects to that. And I'm excited to see like kind of who's stepped up and like kind of
Right.
innovated in this space too. Because I think there's also opportunities to like look at how you evolve your workplaces. So GitHub again, they've said that they're like focusing less on making the workspaces like a place people go to work, and it's more about like a place where we bring people in for events, right? So
Right.
the central office becomes more of like a community building place and less like a workplace.
Right,
So
because you get people for the talents that they have, right? Their abilities. If I work with you, it's because you're an amazing designer, you know how to get shit done, and you will do it no matter where you are or what hours you work. So it doesn't matter if you're in the office, it doesn't matter if you're physically in the building because you have the tools, you have the means to do this work from anywhere. And again, I totally realize that we're in a very privileged position where not everyone can do this, but in our segment of the economy, it's entirely possible. And I don't see why that shift is not going to happen. I don't see that shift reversing, honestly. I might,
yeah,
in a year or two or whenever the vaccine comes out, maybe I'll be wrong. I'm totally open to be wrong, by the way. This is, we're speculating about all these things as if we know the future. We don't. But I have a hard time seeing this shift reversing after people discover that I can be productive from anywhere and from some
yeah,
locations that are, cheaper maybe than what I previously had. Or maybe I can be close to my family, my social circle that I'm actually much more, um, you know, uh, well, I want to say closer to or more relatable to, but essentially I've made, I've seen people make the decision of moving where their parents live because they want to offer the care that they can, during that stage of life. Or I've seen people move to a different part of the country because it's cheaper, right? And their salary is not
mhm,
adjusted. So why not move somewhere where they can buy a ranch instead of a studio apartment, right? All these factors combined, I think, will open a lot of possibilities for people to just see the opportunity that exists out there for remote work that did not, or maybe was not, it always existed. It was just not as obvious for a lot of companies. Now it was forced into this mode.
yeah.
Well, we
I
talked a
think
lot
it's
about kind of the remote side of things, but we talk about some of the challenges of this year. We talk about lessons learned. What were some of your favorite things this year? Like, let's focus on the positive. Let's see what went well.
so obviously I talked about remote and like seeing the shift in organization. So me personally, uh, that's great. The second part of this though is the amount of effort that has been put into like digital collaboration tools in a very like
Right.
rapid window of time has been like awesome to see. So I'm a designer and I use a tool called Figma, which is it's a designer, really it's a drawing
That's
tool,
amazing.
but it's wonderfully like open to multiplayer ability. So I can share a link with Den, and other people can jump into the. It's basically Google Docs, like a shared Google Doc, but it's like a drawing tool. They've added some amazing features over the last year. Really, it's less than a year. Um, to support again like distributed workspaces, working together. They've added a lot of different like commenting features, so that's awesome. And then Microsoft Teams, obviously they've been like, man, I feel like they've been killing it. Their team has been shipping some awesome features over the last 8 months, which has been awesome as well. Performance has improved, so that's exciting from the product perspective. The conference realm, so I've personally been dabbling a little bit in presenting at different online conferences. I love it. I didn't ever mind like going obviously to like a new city, but it's just like such a stress reliever to be able to like walk away from my computer and be home already, right? Like I don't have to
Right.
travel back home, or like I don't have to go to a mixer right after if I'm not feeling it. So that has been kind of cool to do virtual events and present at virtual events and not feel left out. Everybody's in the same boat. There's no fear of missing out. Um, Obviously, I miss seeing new places, new parts of the world. That was something I always look forward to doing conferences and stuff. So
I
I kind
miss
of welcome them back
Yeah, I
at some
miss
point.
going to like California for conferences when it was my favorite conference was I think Build 2011. It was in Anaheim. It was right next to
Hmm.
Disneyland. the best conference ever because we could just go across the road and go to Disneyland right after. Like hands down. So if we can repeat those experiences in the future, that would be great. But to your point.
Oh, one other thing though.
Yes.
Tiger King, like the early pandemic when Tiger King came
Oh,
out, that was like
yes.
that was like the golden age of pandemic, right? Like that was the part where it was like, oh, it's only going to last like 4 weeks. Let's just, shack up in our house and watch Tiger King. So
that was
seems like ages ago.
Factory.
Yeah.
Speaking of memes, the one thing I did not expect in 2020, I'm not going to lie, clearly Seinfeld and tech resonates with people. Who knew? Like, I had no freaking idea. Shocking.
Which one has been your most successful so far?
I think, let's see, the most successful so far. Let me look it up. Actually, yeah, this is one of those things that really surprised me this year. I know, like, in all the stuff that's been going on around us, just the fact that somehow Seinfeld and tech was what people needed at the end of the year, at least like the tech audience that follows me on Twitter, was probably the biggest discovery I've made this year alone. It's a useless discovery, but it's a big discovery for me. The modern web architectures was the one that I think right now clocks at about 2,500 retweets and about like close to 10,000 likes. I don't get it. Like I don't get what's so special about it that like it even baffles me. I don't know what the Twitter algorithm, how it pops up in the right people's feeds, but
right,
man, is that shocking.
Did Netflix release Watch Party this year?
I think so.
You watched together, and again, that's like another cool feature that was like added by a company that's like looking at how can we do like distributed entertainment.
Right, because we had that with playlists before. When you do, you can share I forget the name of the startup, but they built essentially a kind of almost like a Spotify shared view where you're able to listen to the same things with your friends at the same time. So it's not just you're sharing the playlist, but you can actually
Turntable.
I think it might have been Turntable. Yeah,
Turntable FM.
Because previously people would just share playlists and then sure, you can play it on your own, but you can kind of play pause with other people and kind of see what the reactions are and whatnot. It was kind of a fun experiment.
Another thing that's been great this year, you and I realized quickly that we missed connecting with folks in the industry. So we started up this podcast
that was
really
really
as a vehicle to like continue our working relationship, but then also just to like get out there and like grow, be in a growth mindset, talk to new people, and continue the conversation without having to do it in person. And I think that was professionally, it's been like a great thing for me to just see what opportunities are out there,
right,
and like how other people are thinking about the industry and exposing ourselves to just very different viewpoints and specialties. And so, yeah, that's been like a high point in my mind. Like if you can do that, this is like general advice to anybody who's looking at their career. It's like, people like to be interviewed. They like to talk about their work. So don't be afraid to like reach out to anybody. You don't have to start a podcast to do it, but you could just reach out on LinkedIn or Twitter and be like, hey, do you have 15 minutes to like, for me to do a little interview with you? Versus like, just doing coffee. Cause it just prefaces the conversation a little bit better. When you tell them, hey, tell me about your job or tell me about yourself. Right.
It was eye-opening. And we had some guests that were, I would previously say that they're not like out of range, but it's more of people that I would normally not run into, right? We had Bill Kenny on our podcast who was talking about branding. I was never exposed to branding before, right? I'm in my PM world. I do like engineering things, whatever. But then you have this person coming in and just dropping knowledge on branding. And it's just, things start clicking where you're like, oh, that's how it works. I get it now.
My favorite was probably honestly having Sarah Chips on the show. So her conversation about like working with people and like having a lot of empathy in the way that she like approaches her work was awesome. And if you were to go to like a conference, she's going to be talking to so many people that you would probably not even get a shot because there's going to be, like I said, a line of people to chat with her. So yeah, it's nice. Like I said, love to recommend that to anybody in their career, early in their career, even go talk to people who are doing your job or the job you want,
Right.
and you'll learn something.
They'll share insights that you don't expect them, because oftentimes people also typecast other people, say, oh, this person is a product manager in this product, or this person is, an engineer. But then, we talked to Meg Reisdell not too long ago, right? And we kind of got the perspective of how somebody got started with a career in essentially data science plus product management, which is not that common. And again, it's kind of very eye-opening where you start realizing that I can do that. Wow, and this is a path that you typically don't hear from people in, a day-to-day conversation. You don't ask them, well, how did you start in your career? What was your path like?
Right.
It's very insightful. I think I agree with you. I think this podcast has been the highlight of my year, hands down, just because we got to know so many great people and we got to talk about them, about their jobs, about how they started, what they're doing. And it really shows you that everyone has a very unique, impactful story. You just have to figure out what that story is and how to get those people on the show, essentially.
You've had a great, year professionally. You went from Microsoft to Amazon, then you came back to Microsoft, which is great to have you back.
I'm super excited about it, by the way.
That's awesome. Gaming wise, let me think here. Gaming wise, I feel like Among Us has been a huge hit. I don't, there was Animal Crossing was massive.
Untitled Goose Game.
Untitled Goose Game. I was actually playing that last night a little bit. That's cracking me up. I'm sure I'm doing bad here on my gamer ness because I haven't been keeping up with like all the newest stuff. Cyberpunk just launched, but like I haven't played it at all. I've been a bad gamer this year, honestly, like, which is weird because we've been in the pandemic. I could have played, I guess, a lot of games, but we've just decided to play Age of Empires all the time, right?
Right, I know. It's still a good game after how many, 20 years now? Age of Empires, Flight Simulator. I freaking love Flight Simulator. I got a joystick just so I can play Flight Simulator. Like, that game is just another level of polish. It's just so well made.
Fly simulated.
The what?
I said you can't travel right now, so you're gonna fly.
Yes. Well, and they actually wrote an article about what people are doing, and most people that are playing. I keep mispronouncing that word. English is not my first language, so I apologize. But so what's interesting is that most people that apparently play Flight Simulator, their most frequent destination is home. So people that could not fly, from Seattle to, I don't know, North Carolina or Montana or Florida, they would just fly there. It's a fascinating insight where if you give people a game that literally you're flying planes around anywhere in the world, people would still fly home.
That's awesome.
They had the interview with their key engineer, and he was saying that he's in Seattle now. His family is in Germany, and he flew to Germany and would, be on the Skype call with the parents and just tell them that, I'm flying over your house right now. It's just a fascinating, again, kind of side of human behavior in this regard, where, you can replicate a lot of stuff in the virtual world, apparently.
And then we've had The Mandalorian, which I don't know if you've kept up on that then.
I have not seen any of the Star Wars, and I have not caught up with The Mandalorian yet, although I do have a Disney Plus subscription, so maybe I should start using it.
There you go.
Let's see what. I've been using the Disney Plus subscription to look at the Jeff Goldblum show, where he just kind of walks you through everything from ice cream factories to bubblegum and whatnot. It's fascinating. But gaming wise, I got back into Red Dead Redemption. That is a work of art. Like, somehow that game has everything in it, and it's set in this wild west of the United States before the United States was what it is now. But the game is literally a work of art because you can interact with everything. Every blade of grass, flower, tree, animal, people that are in this game is just, I don't know, they just made this massive open world experience where it's not the kind of the static video game typical, you have this box you're in, so you have to do mission, quest, talk to this person, versus here's this whole thing and you can do whatever you want.
I'm sure that CD Projekt Red would have wished that they would have that level of polish, right, on launch. Like,
I'm not gonna even open
seen.
that can of worms because I was contemplating, and my friend group and I were talking about how maybe we should all get into that game. But then the moment it came out and you just see the reviews and you see the kind of bugs that are happening, it's like, yeah, I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait for a while.
Yeah. I mean, obviously,
like,
if you're a console gamer fan, this year's been huge because the new Xbox, the new PS5 is out. If you've been lucky enough to get one, so
which
I think there's
got one. I didn't get mine yet. It's sold out everywhere.
Yeah, it is. I tried to get one last night. I tried to get a PS5 last night because I heard they were dropping some more inventory, but I had no luck.
I see people on Twitter tweeting links to like, hey, Best Buy has it now. And the moment you go to Best Buy, it's already sold out. Like, it sells out in seconds.
What has been really interesting, and to me, has been the transition of people since they're now home and they now have invested in, some people have invested in nice camera setups. They've invested in like great microphones, and they're like, you know what, I got to get my workspace like set up to be here more permanently. You're seeing professionals actually streaming that normally would not have done this. So there's designers, there's developers, there's engineers just streaming their work. Like, literally, I'm going to set up a Twitch stream or Facebook live stream or YouTube stream and just take you through a day of my work, which has been really cool to see this shift, which you probably wouldn't have seen it happen had everybody been stuck in an office still. So you're getting an inside glimpse at how a lot of these, specialists are doing their job. So again, kind of another carry away from this whole pandemic has been, I love it. Like, I'll go in and watch designer streams and learn something all the time when I pull up a Twitch stream. So I think that's
I definitely
cool.
see that shift. Yeah, and you kind of get more insights in the day-to-day. You see more engineers and designers, product managers getting into the, like I said, streaming, vlogging. You get a little bit more of a perspective. I think, what was the last stream or vlog of it? There is this engineer. She has a channel. Oh, Mayuko. I think it's Hello Mayuko on Twitter. But she's been kind of documenting her experience as an engineer from kind of the very different sides of things. And it's fascinating to learn about what people are doing, how they're dealing with the current pandemic, how they're adapting their tool set, how they're continuing to scale, what are they using, what tools do they use. And sometimes, I'm pretty sure I discovered Figma through somebody streaming about it. Like, I did not know about Figma until I saw somebody kind of on a live stream doing this collab on a design, and I was like, wait, what is this tool? Like, is this InVision? And then, like, is this a plugin for InVision? And then it's like, whoa, no, it's something completely different. We're in a brave new world. It's gonna be different.
And so it'll be interesting to see, like I said, where companies take their workforces in 2021, and then the product developments that we're going to see out of 2021. I would love to see, and this is just me spitballing, but more breaking into the VR industry for remote workers. So I think there's like a great opportunity there for like collaborative work or like shared whiteboards and stuff.
About it again.
Yeah, that'd be great. It'd be really cool. I mean, I think there's some opportunities there in the VR realm for collaborative work tools. So
I can't wait to
don't know exactly what they are, but I think there are.
Yeah, whiteboard in VR, that would be awesome. Or whatever shape that takes. I'm saying whiteboard, where whiteboard can mean, a whole bunch of different things, I guess, when you're in virtual reality.
Yeah.
And the devices are getting cheaper too, which is awesome. I can actually hopefully buy one soon and not spend, $15,000 on the VR rig.
Yeah, I think that's the main prohibitive thing, right? Is the hardware you need, and obviously you have to have a headset too, but you just got to have some pretty beefy hardware to do it. So, and
space for it, because I'm not about knocking my furniture down just by playing Star Wars in VR. Just smack something in the house. That would be, I don't know. I'm sure my wife would not appreciate it.
We're doing a product kickoff, and you kick over the table or something, right?
They do have the I forget what they call them, but they're essentially like virtual reality rooms that you can rent, and they set up whatever games they have, and you have this giant, like hangar kind of space where you can just do whatever. If you want to run full speed for like half a mile, you totally can. I was like, wow, we need some of that. And if you have this giant, airplane hangar through which you can just do whatever in VR, I think that would be an awesome experience.
Yeah, that would be cool.
You don't have to worry about, knocking your computer down. You don't have to worry about, crashing through a window. None of that stuff. We were worried about when people had the Wii, and they would toss their controllers and stuff. Yeah, so now you're just like, you're tossing yourself out into a wall or something. Like, that's much, much more painful than replacing a TV, but sure. Yeah, well, good stuff. Hopefully we'll get to resume our show in early January with more awesome guests. So we'll keep the list right now hidden, and that is because we don't know who are going to be the guests yet.
I don't know for sure, but we have some good people.
Right. So
working on.
I know it'll be exciting. So I am committed to continuing the show because Courtney, it's been awesome working with you on this, and I hope we'll continue collaborating. And there's a lot of topics that I think we'll get to discuss in 2021 around, again, product design, experiences. It's an ever evolving field. I don't think we'll ever reach a point where we're like, all right, we know everything, we're good.
Yeah, and we're committed to developing this podcast and the content too. So I think that's something that we want to look at for 2021 is how can we shift, not just doing interviews, but there's other things too that we would like to talk about or discuss or deep dive on. And so be on the lookout for that. We're excited. I'm excited. Jen, you better be excited.
I'm excited too. Yeah, we can do more of these conversations like this where we can just discuss some random topics. But yeah, and maybe we can also do some bite-sized podcasts too for people on the go that you don't have a full hour to listen to. Mm-hmm. Because I know we have a lot of fascinating interviews and topics coming up, but I know that not everyone has the time for it. So, any last closing words? Advice?
No, I don't think so. I just hope everybody has a great holiday season and takes time to kind of recharge mentally. I know it's been a heck of a year for everyone. So
heck of a year is an understatement, I think.
Yeah. Yep.
So stay at home, wash your hands, wear a mask, and we'll see you in the new year.
See y'all.